Hey everybody, welcome back to another tutorial of Dragonframe. Today we're going to be going over focus stacking using indexing. This is good for time-lapse photography, this is good for stop motion. In this case what we're going to be doing is automating a stacking routine to gather all the images needed to get an entire small part in focus. So when you're doing macro photography, the depth of field is very limited, so you can't get the whole thing in focus at a time. You can increase or decrease your aperture by going with a higher f-stop, which can expand that, but it still might not be enough to get the whole subject in. So you'll have to do some focus stacking if you want to achieve that. But before we get started, I am going to shamelessly plug my website here, the chronisprojectcom. I have been building motion control equipment for Dragonframe for probably close to 10 years now, maybe longer. I'm not exactly sure. I built a lot of these systems, and one of the most intimidating things in the beginning was figuring out how to do all the electronics. So this is a system that's kind of designed to make this as easy as possible. What we have is a Pelican case. And you have an adjustable voltage supply. You can go all the way up to 40 volts, depending on the system that you're using, even higher up to 60. All it needs is a USB connection to your computer, and it will be able to run real-time moves with Dragonframe for up to 8 motors. It will also do stop motion animation or time-lapse or whatever you want as well. So that's something I just wanted to put out there because this is a really easy way to simplify builds. And also I'm going to be having more systems like this coming onto my website very shortly, including my own slider, a pan tilt, focus motors, independent motors that can just be plugged right into this box in order to give a real-time movement on maybe your own rigs that you currently have. But this is basically just designed to take a lot of the guesswork out and a lot of the difficulty out of wiring up everything with all the driver, with the power supply, the processor, and the drivers. So enough of that. Okay, so back to this. Like I said, we can't get this whole thing in focus, and that's a problem. So what we're going to have to do is use a thing called indexing. So I'm just going to go ahead and open this up. And over here it says indexing, and I'm going to put 10 positions in this one, okay? I've already kind of gone through this on a dry run, so I know how many I need. You'll probably have to do some experimenting. So we're going to go ahead and open this up a little bit more. I'm going to be able to see everything nicely. So now as you can see our focus, instead of just having this one position, I've got multiple positions that are in here, and these are all indexes. And this index number 1 is currently assigned to exposure number 1. So what we need to do is we need to build more exposures so I can use multiple exposures to capture this whole area. So the next thing we're going to do is going to go over here to the cinematography page, and we are going to add some exposures. So I only have one right now. There's 2 ways I can do it. I can either just hit this little plus button. I can build them that way, or I can double click this and I can move in here and I can add exposures by hitting this button. So we're just going to go ahead and make sure we have 10. And now we have our 10 exposures, and what we need to do is link them to the different keyframe positions for the focus motor. So we're going to go back to the arc motion control. As you can see here, I don't know why this happened. It doesn't really matter. Right now it's associating location 1 with all the exposures, so I'm going to go ahead and start correcting this. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3 down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, so now what it's going to do is every one of these, when the system moves into place with the pan, slide, and tilt, it is going to put out 10 images, and on each one of those images, they will be associated with the keyframe that you see here. So what we're going to do is we're going to first establish what is our near and what is our far location, and we are going to have X1 is going to be our far location. So I'm just going to double click on this, and if this doesn't work for you for the focusing, just go into focus and make sure you have focus as selected as a function. That way you can get that punch in. Now I'm going to move the focus out to the far location, which is going to be this little knob right here. As you can see, it's in focus. I'm just going to go ahead and say that's going to be our beginning. And what I'm going to do before that, just to make my life a little bit easier with the numbers, you'll see why in a second, I'm going to set this as my 0 for the focus. I'm going to lock that keyframe in. Now, I'm going to bring this out, and we're going to get this front part in focus. And I want to give it a little bit extra. especially if I'm doing a time lapse, because this might grow a little bit closer to it. So I'm actually just going to come out to 1800. And that feels good. I'm going to go ahead and lock that down as my end. So now if I hit the go to the keyframe on this, I'll see the beginning. And if I hit this, I should see it come all the way back and beyond. And that'll give it a little extra wiggle room. And looking in here, so that means that I've got numbers. The 0 is going to be the first keyframe. Then we're going to go through all these others and start adding up. So if I have 1800, I'm going to divide that by 9 because I have 9 more keyframes that I'm adding into this, and that's going to be 200. So what I'm going to move is 200 steps each time. So right now it's going to be at 0. So the first one is going to be at 200 for the next focus point. Then we're going to go 400. And you're just going to have to do the math and see what this is. And if anybody has a better way of doing this, I'm definitely all ears. I can't help but think there should be some way to do this with a spreadsheet. I'm just going to keep on going. 1,000. 1,200. 1,400. 1,600. And as you can see there, it gets us to 1,800. We are taking even distances between each of these keyframes. So if I go back to the very first one, I can click this, I click on the next index, and the next one I'm looking to see is that I'm seeing areas in focus that are closest to me. As it moves closer, that I do see when it stops, they are in focus, and that there is a little bit of overlap on these because you're going to need a little bit of overlap. If I needed more, I just simply would bump this up to maybe 15 indexes and go that route, and then 15 exposures. You can see, though, this is going to get very expensive on shutters very quickly, though, if you're not careful. Now that I have this set up, I want to go ahead and maybe just get a little bit of a motion on this so we know that something's happening, because I don't want to just do focus stack after focus stack. I want to show you that things are going to move too. So what we're going to do is we are just going to slide the camera over this way a little bit and pan it a little bit and slide a little bit and keep it about there. We are at the closest focus point. Everything here looks okay. It looks like we got the close stuff in focus. So that's fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a keyframe on a model mover, which I don't think we use anything on it, but let's go ahead and put a keyframe on there, make sure they're all good. And then we're going to move out to, say, 30 frames. We're only going to do 30. I'm going to mark those keyframes too. So if we go back, and get it back here. Now we can see what the change in the movement is going to be, and we're going to try to keep this all in stack. Now, I'll tell you what, you can actually even move this and move it to where this is even further back, and it drifts completely out of range of what you have here. And then all you do is you repeat that process on the second keyframe, and that means that as it moves, it will actually shift the focus on all points of that stack along with the subject. Sometimes you might find it compressing or expanding a little bit. It takes a little while to set up, and I'm not going to show that on here, but it's basically just the same process I already did. So now that we have our movement set up, we have our stack set up, let's go ahead and do a frame on this and take a look and see what happens. So we're going to put it into movement ready to capture. And as you see here, we have all these different images, okay? So those are all the different exposures on here. So we're just going to go ahead and do capture single frame, and we'll see what it looks like. There's the first. And the second. And you can see that focus shifts with each image. I'm looking to make sure that some of the stuff here is in focus on one side, it's focused on the other too. Just to make sure that it's going to be a good stack. Okay, so let's go ahead and just kind of take a look and make sure that this stack does cover everything. I think that looks good. And that first one is just because there's a little bit of tug on the lens. That can actually be fixed by going into the focus and doing some backlash compensation or rollback, but I don't have that sorted out right now on it, and I'm not terribly concerned on it, to be honest. The stacking program can make that slight little adjustment and correct for that, so it's not really terribly concerning. So we're just going to go ahead and do this, and we are going to capture all 30 frames. So 29. And we're just going to let this run for a bit. Okay, now it looks like it's finally done. It took about half an hour to get through all that. So I can look through any one of these and see that we're going to get that progression through for the stack. So I'm really happy with the way that all of these are looking. Now, just to kind of show you something when you're doing this, there's different ways you can kind of review the footage. If you come over here and to the animation page, you just hit spacebar. It's playing through, right? So we'll got a little bump there. I'm not too concerned about that right now. In fact, I see actually why, because the camera actually kind of nudged something. But as you can see here, we're seeing the very first frame of all 10 that are in there, or the very first exposure. So if we want to see exposure 2, go to playback, and you would select exposure 2. If we go back to exposure 8, you'll see everything up here is closer in focus. And 9, it's even closer. Now let's take a look at the way that the file structure on this works too, because it's good to know. Go in here and click on any one of these, do a right click and go to Reveal and Explore. And we're going to go back. So Dragonframe tutorial is our scene. Take 8 is this episode. And you can see all these different exposures. Okay. So what, if you go in here, these are all exposure number 3. There should be 30 of them. And you'll see that it ends in 001, 002, 003. And the reason we have both is because you have a JPEG as well as a CR2 raw file. So this is everything that's in exposure 3. If we want to go exposure 8, this is everything that's in exposure 8. So now we got to process this. And I don't really want to take a lot of time explaining this. But I'll show you how to do it with Helicon, at least the basics, so you understand the flow. And then you can do other tutorials with Helicon on how to make it look prettier. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get this off of this station where I'm shooting, and I'm going to take this into my editing PC. Okay, this is literally like take 15 for this next part of the video. It's been nothing but a frustration, but I think I got it sorted out. I was doing something that's bugging out Windows. But so what we're going to do at this point, so this is my editing machine, and I've got all the different exposures. This is from the Dragonframe folder. I didn't copy everything over. I just copied over all these exposures. So it normally starts out, you go into the folder, and then you'll see these. So what we're going to do is we're going to look for all the JPEGs on here, and we're going to filter out any that we need to get rid of real quick, and I'll show you what I mean. So once we have it here, and we're going to do all.jpg, searching for all the JPEGs. And we're just going to give it a minute and let it kind of get them all picked out. Okay. And this is what I'm looking for, right? We have 2 JPEGs of the same name for every file. We have these little thumbnail size. So we're just going to go ahead and delete those. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to find where those end. And I can tell by the size of the image. And I'm just going to do shift up to there and then delete. Okay, so now if we search all.jpg, show all 299, they are all the same size. Well, about same size. They're big. So we have the 6,000, 4,000. So we're using the JPEGs. You can also use the CRTs if you want, but you'll have to go through basically the same process. Let me explain why we're doing this. This is Helicon Focus. This is what I use for the focus stacking. There are other programs out there, but this is the only one I know that does batch, so this is the one that I use. What we do want to do is do a batch file, and so we don't have to sit there and do all these manually. The problem is Helicon will only read them by name. I can't tell it to sort it by different attributes, like when it was taken. So when it gets all the images from Dragonframe, and you see here it starts with, well, let's go sort by name. The thing it does is exposure 1, shot 2, exposure 1, shot 3, exposure 1, shot 4. And the problem is it actually shoots all these other images between those and it ruins the stack. So what we need to do is get all of these. I'm going to copy all of them. Shift. And we should have 299. Do I have one more up here? I'll find that in a second. We're just going to go ahead and copy this. And we are going to go ahead and go to that other JPEG folder, and we're going to paste them all in there. Okay, now we have all of the images, all the JPEGs from all those different takes, all in the same folder. And then I'm going to go over here real quick. You're not going to have to do this, but I know that I kind of goofed up because I'm looking at it and it starts at 2. So I'm going to go retrieve 1. So I'm going to go over to tutorial, focus stacking good. It tells you there's been a lot of these that haven't been good. And I'm just going to grab the first JPEG out of here. Details. Let's see if I can expand this. Okay, so this is the one that was missing. I'm going to go ahead and, oh, I don't want CR2 with the JPEG, and bring it in here. Sort by name. And now we have all of them. Cool. So if I do Control A or Control A and try to drag it, I see I have all 300. So this is what I need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it by date modified. So start at 255 and make sure it's going up in number. And as you see here, it's not going to present the images of the stack properly. It's going to go through and grab one from each of the exposures. So we have to rename these based off date modified to be sequential. So I'm going to go here, I'm going to do Control A, I'm going to do right click, and if you have Mac, good luck with this. I've not figured out how to do this easily in Mac at all. I'm going to do, where is it? Show more actions, rename, Dragon tutorial, and that's it. I'm just going to hit it and do enter. Now as you see, it adds a number going through all of these, and now they are all going to be alphabetical order, or not alphabetical, but they are in line name-wise the same way that they are in the time of creation. So now that we have that, we can go ahead and do the stack. So we're going to go over here to File in Helicon. We are going to go to Batch Process. We are going to add a folder. We're going to go into the Dragonframe tutorial. We're going to go to JPEG, and I'm just going to select this folder where they all are, and it shows 300 files. And what we need to do is we need to come over here, the little wheel that you see, and go down to Split Stack, and that's going to open up this window. And what we are going to do is, but we're going to image it by count. So we're going to tell it every 10 files, that's going to be a new stack. And it's going to do it alphabetically. So now alphabetically matches the time in which they were shot. I'm going to go ahead and do split. And you can see now we have all these, total of 30 stacks. And I'm going to go ahead and hit render. And we should start. And as you can see here, we got this beautiful image with this little knob on the potato, and it's fully in focus. I'm going to go to the next one. Next one, next one. And you can see this cranks through it pretty quick. Another one. So there are these options over here with Helicon, and you can play around with these and find out what's going to work the best for you. This is not a tutorial for Helicon. I just want to show if you do want to do Dragonframe as stop motion or time lapse and do a focus stack, this is a good workflow that has worked for me in order to get an expanded depth of field on small subjects while filming them. We're going to go ahead and go into JPEG, and we set those in a folder. It create a folder called Focused. Just going to open this, and we're going to do extra large view. We have like a gallery. I jump back and forth between Mac and app or a PC all the time, and sometimes it's a little bit jarring. So let's just take a look and see. As you can see there, it creates images. So I mean, this looks really bad because we're just kind of like bouncing through. But you see, you have frames of a video at this point, so you can use your favorite program, whether it's DaVinci or Premiere Pro or something like that, and then you can go ahead and finish up your footage. So hope you enjoyed this. If you did, make sure you hit those buttons, and that'll allow you to keep following and let you know if anytime there's new videos coming out. And I hope this is useful. If anybody has any tutorials that they would like me to cover, please go ahead and shoot me a message in the comments. And if anybody has any alternative ways to do it, I'd love to hear about it in the comments as well. Thank you so much for watching.